Okay, this is 4-5. Hey, 4-5 completing the square. Yours is probably cut off too, so if you care, it's 4-5. Completing the square is another way to solve parabolas. It's another way to solve an x squared problem. However, I don't think you need another one. Okay, so let me explain what's going to happen today. Whenever I have to solve, like number 15, if it said solve, I would either factor or I would quadratic. I don't do anything other than those two. I think those two are plenty, okay, because one of them is going to work. Does that make sense? Okay, so I don't feel like you need another one, and this one is so different that I typically don't solve this way anyway. However, we're still going to cover it because of this. This helps us put things in vertex form. So remember when we graphed parabolas a long time ago and it was in vertex form and it took us like 2 seconds to graph? That's why we're still going to do it. So we're not going to solve in completing the square today. We're going to use it to help us put them in vertex form and graph the thing. Does that make sense to you? So we're doing it but in a different way for a different reason. Okay? So I'm going to put at the top, helps with vertex form. Okay? Let's go to the back and we're going to write directions. They will not make sense to you right now. Just write them down anyway. And then when we start doing them, it'll start making sense to you. Okay? So, vertex form directions, or whatever you want to call it. Step 1, set equal to 0, or y really, it doesn't matter. That's kind of the same thing. And make sure it's in descending order. That's the same for the rest of the chapter. We've done that all chapter. We want it equal to 0 or equal to y if we're graphing it, and we want it in descending order. That's not any different, okay? Step 2, group the x's together, and you use parentheses when you do that. Again, it's not going to make sense. That's okay, just write it down. Step 3. How do I want to say this? Make the coefficient on x squared a 1. Step 4. This is where you actually complete the square. You learned this in Algebra 1. You probably don't remember it, but I'll show you how to do it. To do it, you take half of b, square it, and add to the parentheses. Then, subtract it back out. I'll write the word. Subtract it back out. Watch out for GCF. Sort of, I guess. I don't know how else to say that, though. Step 5, you factor the thing. In step 6, you're going to have it look like this. Y equals a, x minus h squared plus k, where your vertex is h comma k. Again, I know that doesn't make sense. Write it down. Okay? I didn't pay for it. It's okay. We didn't pay for it either. It's old school. It's okay. Okay. Are we good? Do you have it written down? No. Okay. I haven't upset Tony. And this is supposed to help, and instead I just look like a mess. That's new. Yeah. Perhaps I should record a different class because I seem to be a mess this period. So we're going to do, go back to the front. We are not doing 15 or 23 because, again, I probably wouldn't solve it that way either. You totally can. If that's something that you think you'd like to learn sometime, factoring and quadratic formula aren't good for you, you don't like them. Quadratic formula is not an option, but the factoring isn't working for you, not really an option either. But if you want another method, come see me. I'm happy to show you. Okay? But today, we're going to pretend this says, put in Vertex form, maybe something like sketch a graph, and like label max or min. Okay? Put in Vertex form, sketch a graph, label max or min. We're not solving these because we have better ways to do it. Okay? All right, so we're going to go ahead and start with 33. It says x squared minus 4x plus 3. So go back to the back of your notes. What's step 1? Set it equal to 0. Is that done? Okay. And then is it in descending order? Okay, great. What's step 2? Group the x's. There we go. Okay. What's step 4? Where do I? 3. How did I don't know where I am. What's the next step?
Make the coefficient plus.
Yeah, make sure this is a 1, right? Is this a 1? Yes. If it's not a 1, I'll show you what to do later, but it is. So we're good. So now we take half of b, square it, and blah, blah, blah. What's b? Negative 4. Do you guys get that? Negative 4 is the b. What's half of it? Negative 2 squared. 4. So I'm going to say it again. Half of b squared. So half of this number is negative 2. Squared is 4. So here's what I do. X squared minus 4x plus a blank plus 3 minus a blank. I'll show you why I do that in a second. But if I don't put the blanks there, I always forget the second one. And if I forget it, I feel like that's not super good for you, right? So half of b squared is what goes right here. You guys said 4, right? This was a balanced equal equation, and I just shoved 4 marbles into it. Is it balanced anymore? No, it's 4 marbles heavier, or whatever you want to think, right? So it's not equal anymore. So if I put 4 in, I should take 4 out. Do you see what I'm saying? It wasn't equal when I put 4 in, so I had to take it back out again. Does that make sense to you? Okay? It's kind of like chemistry, but not, because I can do it. Okay? So we have created what's called a perfect square trinomial. This is a perfect square trinomial. This will factor every time, unless you obviously pick the wrong number, then whoopsie, okay? So we're going to factor it using a shortcut. You can factor it any way you want to, but it's going to be the same thing every time. It's always going to be a perfect square trinomial, so we're always going to factor it the same way. So let me show you what a perfect square trinomial is, and then I'll show you how to factor it, okay? Perfect square trinomial is where this is a perfect square, which it is, right? This is a perfect square, which it is, okay? And then the square root of both of those times each other times 2. I know that sounds scary. I'll show you in a second. Is the middle one. It is a perfect square trinomial. What's the square root of this? X. What's the square root of that? 2. You always get this sign squared. That's how you're going to factor every time. Take the square root of the front, take the square root of the back, take this sign squared every time. So to prove to you that it's a perfect square trinomial, those are perfect squares, check. What's 2 times x? 2x times 2? 4x. So it's a perfect square trinomial. You never have to check that. As long as you pick the right number, then you're fine. I just wanted to explain where that came from. Okay? What's plus 3 minus 4? Okay. That is in vertex form. I'm going to write it down here because that's got a lot going on there. Back when we were graphing parabolas, where would this move? Down 1. Where would this move? Right 2. So I'm going to go, no. I'm going to go down 1 and right 2. How would this graph open? Up? Anybody not remember why? Okay. Would that be a max or a min? Min. We're able to graph it in 2 seconds because we put it in vertex form. Ask me a question. Okay. So we're going to try another one. We're going to go to number 40 next. In this class, whenever I show you something new, you grab what you can, right? So the first time I show it to you, ouch! Excuse me. Sorry. The first time I show it to you, you may not understand anything, right? The second one I show you, you should understand like a couple of steps. The third one, you should understand like half of it, right? So you just kind of have to bear with me, okay? I don't expect you to be able to do this yet, right? All right, number 40. X squared minus 6x plus 18. Step 1 is set it equal to 0. Is it equal to 0?
Yes.
Yep. Is it in descending order?
Yes.
Great. Step 2. Group the x's. Step 3. Is this a 1?
Yes.
Excellent. So I do x squared minus 6x. It's always going to be a plus blank. I'll explain why in a second. This is not always a minus though, okay? It typically is, but not always. Why is this always plus blank? Right here. What? Go even before what you just said. Well, let's do it and then maybe you'll understand it, okay? What do we do now? Step 4, I think. Half of b squared, right? What is b? Negative 6. So what's half of that? Negative 3 squared. Positive 9. You're taking half of b squared. What's any number squared? Positive. That's why this is always a plus sign. Is that okay? I put 9 in, so take 9 out. If I don't put the blank here, I forget every time. I don't know about you, but I do. So that's why I like to have it there, okay? We've created a perfect square trinomial. So we're going to factor it using our shortcut. It's going to look like this, right? What's the square root of the first number? X. What's the square root of the last number? 3. What sign do I get? This sign right here, okay? That minus sign. Is that always a minus sign? No. Give me minus or plus, right? Okay. What's 18 minus 9? 9. That is in vertex form. What would my vertex be? Let's try this. Where's this move? Up 9. Right 3. So what's my vertex? 3, 9. Okay? So if I go right 3 and up 9, how's it going to open? Up or down? Up? Is that a max or a min? Min.
So the vertex of the last one would be 2, 1 or 2, negative 1?
The last one would have been 2, negative 1. Which is what it is, if you look at it too, right? Okay? Ask me a question. Are you sure? Okay. We're going to go ahead and do 35. 2x squared minus 3x plus 5 is equal to 0. Step 1. Set it to 0, equal to 0, is it? Yep. Is it in descending order? Yep. Step 2. Group the x's. Oh, maybe. There we go. Step 3. Has to be a 1. How do I make this a 1? Pull out a 2. Divide by 2, right? If I pull out a 2, just in the grouped part, okay, I'm going to get x squared Don't be fancy. Negative 3 over 2 is negative 3 over 2. That's fine. Okay? You could write 1.5 if you really wanted to, but I don't. Are you okay? So now we do what we did before. We do the blanks. X, where am I at? 3 halves x. Plus blank always, and then sometimes it's minus, but we don't have to worry about that today. Don't look at the numbers anymore. I want you to just tell me what we do next. Tell me what the step is. Don't look at the numbers. Just tell me what I would do next. Take half of b squared. It's the same thing over and over and over again. I don't care how weird the numbers are. You have a calculator, right? So if we're taking half of b squared, what's b? The 3 halves, right? So how do you take half of that? Divide by 2. So everybody on your calculator, if you don't have one, your phone, whatever, just do something. Do 3 over 2, do fraction, 3 over 2, divided by 2 squared. And what do you get? 9/16. You can do that in your head, but I wouldn't. Yeah. You can't? 9 over 16? Are you thinking 9 over 6 maybe? Huh? You think 3 goes into 16? What are you doing? Dividing by 2 or 3? 9 over 16 doesn't reduce. Why do you think it does? What are you dividing by? Are you sure? If you put 9 over 16 in your calculator, it's going to give you 9 over 16 again. Okay? Okay. I didn't really put 9 over 16 in. Remember, we're in your notes where you wrote, watch out for GCF, exclamation point, because it's important, right? This isn't really a GCF, but it's the same idea. I really put whatever 2 times 9 over 16 is in. Do you see what I'm saying? I didn't put 9 over 16 in. I put 2 times it in. But I've already pulled out the 2 is the problem, okay? So it's 2 times 9 over 16. Yeah, 9 over 8, 1 1/8, whatever you want to call it. That's why you have to watch out when you pull that number out. Okay?
You're always going to multiply.
Yes. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Every time. We did it technically with the first ones, but there was a 1 there, so we didn't think about it. Okay? So how does this factor? What's the square root of that? X. What sign? Minus. Don't use a calculator. What's the square root of 9? 3. What's the square root of 16? 4. Okay. Don't forget the square. People forget that a lot. And then whatever 5 minus 1 1/8 is. What do you get? 3 7/8. Very good. This is in Vertex form.
So were you just done with B on the last step in like -3 halves? You don't use that one?
Okay. I understand what you're saying. If you're doing the trick, you're right. You don't actually use it. If we were factoring by bottoms up or something, we would have said what multiplies to what. Do you see what I'm saying? So if you're doing the trick, you're right. You ignore the middle part because it's going to factor this way every time. Okay? So what's my vertex? 3/4, 3 7/8. If I ask you to graph it, you just do the best you can. So 3/4, 3 7/8 would be right almost to 1 and up almost to 4. Would it open up or down? Be up, right? Because we're positive x squared. Max or min? Min. The only way these get harder is bigger weird numbers. The same thing you do over and over and over and over again. Okay? So on this last one, on 49, we're not actually going to do it. We're just going to say what to do, just for the sake of time. How is this one different from all the other ones? It's equal to 5. What would you do? Subtract the 5, and then you'd do everything we just did. And it's going to be fractions, and you'd use your calculator again. Okay? Questions? Okay, so on your homework, I want you to pretend it said what my directions said. Put in vertex form, okay? Sketch a quick, easy graph. So basically find your vertex. Does it open up or down? all right? And then max or min. Mine, and my answer key is more accurate. I did like t-tables and stuff, but that's not really the point today, so you don't have to do that, okay?
Was 40 a max?
No, these are all mins because all the x squareds are positive,
Alright.
okay?